Jesus. Help me, Jesus. I'm back again. Sorry, I accidentally cut off live. Sorry, I'm back again. For those of you who are coming back, this is part 2 of dealing with loved ones that have suicidal ideations and helping your loved ones. I am so sorry that I accidentally cut it off, but as you come on, we are going to finish this up and you're going to get some understanding. Amen. Hey, Sue Gailey, God bless you. I love you. I see Kathy Forbes again. I see Karen Patterson. God bless you all. Thank you. Andrea, thank you for joining in. Gloria Turner, God bless you. As we come on here, we are going to finish up helping your loved ones that are having suicidal ideations. So one of the things, if you saw that book that I mentioned, God's Firewall School of the Prophet, Session 4, The Spirit of Knowledge, I'm going to be giving you some practical things from this book that God had me specifically spend months of research, understanding, to write and compile as a compilation in 3 chapters of this book that will help you with the anatomy of the brain and to understand what your loved one is going through in order that you can communicate effectively and interact so that they can get to a safe point in their life to get the help necessary. So let's cover just a couple of the few things that I've already mentioned. If they have an issue with depression and wanting to commit suicide, get them to a doctor, a psychiatrist. Get them evaluated by a professional in order that they can get the necessary medication for them to be medicated in order to hold on and get the counseling and healing that they need so that they are able to transact into that process of healing. So let's look at some of the few practical tools that are given to you in this book in order for you to deal with those that are suicidal. First and foremost, we're going to look at one of the big things that causes depression and oppression leading to chemical imbalance is the stress response. Now, stress is a normal thing that's given into our bodies as our adrenals release cortisol along with glucocorticoids in order that we are heightenedly alert, that we need to react, we need to act. And so that stress response is a reactionary response. But this is the thing, especially in this present age, that stress response is only to be operative only 1% in our life. And 99.99% of the time, we're supposed to be at a calm state, a restful state where we just can communicate, we can talk, and we can be at ease. However, it is actually flipped around. Because of all the stress and the pressure that is out there right now, there are areas in which chronic stress has built up, especially on our children, and especially if they are in a public school system that has Common Core. And I'm not the only one giving statistics. There are actually experts that have given statistics on children that have had nervous breakdowns that are under a Common Core public school system. But it's not just public school. It can be any school where there is such a super amount of stress, pressure on the young people, but that young person is not equipped mentally or emotionally to handle it. So what happens is that chronic stress happens every day, but instead of happening at the same level every day, that chronic stress builds up. One of the things that we are different from mammals is that mammals can have a big stressful reactionary episode, and it is reactionary in them. They can have an episode where they react out of stress like a zebra running from a lion. That zebra is stressed out while it's running, but after that lion is no longer chasing them, that zebra is not stressed out at all. and it totally dissipates. It is not that way in human beings because our brains are designed with such memory and such ability in those neurons to contain memories in those dendrites that when we are stressed out, doesn't just stay stressful, then dissipate. Instead, it builds up on the stressful state that we've had for the last several days, even last few years, even last few decades. And with our children today, you have so much information coming in from social media. So no longer are they only just stressed out at school like when I grew up and we didn't even have cell phones at that time. We only had a landline phone. I would be stressed out at school, but when I got home, I wasn't worried about what went on in school because it was behind me, so my stress dissipated after school was over. But today, with social media, there is no break from that stress state because now when young people get home all through school, before school, when they get home, they have that social media staring them in their face, and it could bring stress and accumulate stress as well from that social media. So some of the things that you have to look at as a parent is you first and foremost have to help them set up boundaries. One of the things that I have noticed as a parent that God has really equipped me with and He's given me discernment is people cannot give out what they do not have the resource within them to give. Now think about that, because just that alone is worth watching this Facebook Live. You cannot give out what you don't have inside of yourself to give. So for example, if you want $500 bills from me and you come up to me and say, Robin, I want $500 bills. I want 10 $500 bills from you right now. And I would tell you, look, I don't have 10 $100 bills. I don't have that. I'm sorry. I'm not going to give it to you because I do not have it. And it would be like you insisting, I am not going to leave until you show me those 10 $500 bills. Well, you would be standing here all day long because until someone comes and puts 10 $100 bills in my hand, I do not have them to give to anyone, especially someone knocking on my door. It is the exact way when you're dealing with someone who has a chronic stress state that's accumulated, and you as a parent are saying, come on, you got to clean up your room, you got to do this, you got to do your homework, you got to do this, you got to do this. We as a parent do not realize that what we are doing with our own child is we are adding to that chronic stress state and accumulating more chronic stress when they do not have the resource within themselves to be able to do what is expected of them. Do you understand this, saints of God? We put unacceptable expectations in the present condition of this fragile state. When you are dealing with a child that is very fragile, you have to be discerning, and you have to pick up on cues, and you have to pick up on their stress state. Many times it is seen when they're rubbing their face, or they could be rubbing their hands, or they could be sighing, or they would put, when they put their eyes down on the ground and they're looking down on the ground, that is an indicator that they are being stressed out. That should be your time out button, and you should be able to call time on yourself. And you need to pull back, and you need to get away, and you need to get a plan about what your child is able to give out. Because what is happening in this time is they're in their chronic stress state. It has actually built up a chemical reaction inside of the brain, which actually leads to chemical depression, and is also in areas of at least 2 areas of the brain, also instigates brain dysregulations. I have all of that in this book, and I'm going to try to show you again and flip the camera at the very end of this. in order that you have this information at the end. I cannot tell you how much God has emphasized that I write this book to help parents with young people who are dealing with this dis-ease in their soul. Because not only is it a chemical dis-ease at times, but it is also not only a mental dis-ease, but it is an emotional dis-ease. So when you have someone dealing with this, you have to first and foremost know that you have to have time out. And what is your timeout indicator? When either you or your child are getting stressed out. When you have anxiety, as you will see in the new book, Destiny, you are going to be either a distributor of peace or you're going to be a distributor of anxiety. And whatever is ruling you is what you're going to distribute. So if you find yourself getting anxious about anything, that is a time out for you, that you cannot talk to your child until you get in a place where you are no longer anxious. Get you a cup of tea, get you a glass of tea, get you a cup of coffee, do whatever you have to do, and break away for 20 minutes and get yourself in what I would call a time out. And that is to find a place of peace. You are not to communicate with your child if you are anxious, because all that is going to do is to add to their chronic stress state, where you will find out that you might have a chronic stress state that has brought brain dysregulations as well. As I did this book, I saw the brain dysregulations I had that God has healed me from, thank you, Jesus, and has brought balance into my brain. But one of the things that chronic stress does is it releases so much cortisol. If you're constantly stressed out, you're bathing your hippocampus in cortisol, and your hippocampus is the place of declarative learning, which basically means the place where you get new knowledge, is the place where new brain cells are. It is also the place where there's what's called neuron endangerment, where when your neurons get so bathed in that hippocampus with cortisol, because your hippocampus is the prime area of cortisol receptors, that what happens is it is also the area of most of your memories. So when you're stressed out, that cortisol bathes your hippocampus. It brings neuron endangerment, which when you see children have seizures that have never had seizures their whole life until a point, most times it is due to chronic stress state and that neuron endangerment in the hippocampus. And there's too much energy of cortisol that it is overloading their hippocampus, that they start to have seizures. Again, I get into that in this book, and I talk about a specific diet, the ketogenic diet, which helps in that regard. And also, one of the things that you look at as a parent, not that you have to harp on it, is the diet. First and foremost, your child needs to eat. One of the symptoms of that depression and desiring to end their life is they start starving themselves, or they lose their appetite. You as a parent, you cannot be anxious about this. You just have to lovingly cook them meals and just have a good interaction when you bring them meals. Have fun, have laugh, which we're going to get to in just a minute. And again, I don't have enough time to give you all this information, but I'm going to give you the basic tools to help you. One of the areas that we just looked at is that chronic stress state and how to address it, because it is operating in your child and they're constantly in a reactionary mode and they're overloaded with stress, so they're not even able to function, and it's too much more than they can handle. It's more than they can bear. People that are suicidal are in a chronic stress state continually, and they're not able to handle anything, much less wanting to live, because they are hopeless and they are in a grave. And that is seen in Ezekiel 37, which I'm not going to get into today, but that just gives you an indicator. As in Ezekiel 37, when they stood up a great army, and in verse 10, It says in verse 11, they said, our hope is cut off. And then God says, I'm going to bring you up out of your grave. That is a great representation of someone who is suicidal. They are living in a grave, in a tomb state, and they are just merely existing, and they are looking for hope. You as a parent are their main avenue to give hope. You are not to preach. You are not to teach and give sermons. Your job is to love and to give hope. That is all you do. Love and give hope. In this season that you are dealing with, as they are in that suicidal area, you are to love them and to give them hope. Now let's look at two more things before we end this broadcast today. And I pray God is giving you some tools to help your loved ones that are dealing with this issue so you can operate in a grace from God and you can give hope to your loved ones who are wanting to end their life. That you could be that rope of hope, hallelujah, that gets them in to God's grace of truth to know that God loves them. One of the areas that we look at with those that want to commit suicide is they do not know their value and they do not think that they matter. As a parent, we have to be that instrument of love. We have to let them know that they matter to the Lord and they matter to us. This is going to be the most pulling and trying time of your life. And you're going to want to have quick conversations and you're going to want to end them so you can get about your business or you can go to bed. One of the things in this season, when you're dealing with a child that has these issues, you do not get to go to bed early when you want to go to bed early when they want to have a conversation. Your job as a parent is to be patient, to trust God, that He's going to give you the strength, and you are going to have a conversation with your child because those are the opportunities for you to give out hope. One of the areas in which the brain operates, where that suicidal ideation comes from, is not only the chronic stress response with the adrenals and the hippocampus, but it is also in what is called the amygdala. And we have amygdala on each side of our brain, on the left and right hemisphere. The amygdala is going to be the area that sets off a fear panic response. So immediately when you smell something or when you're touched, that fear response bypasses your thalamus, which decides where memories go or information goes, and instead it goes straight to your amygdala. And before you know it, you are subconsciously in a panic, anxiety response. It takes a moment for your frontal lobe, your executory decision-making area, to go, okay, let us perceive we're not in a threat right now, so everything's okay, so we do not have to panic. You have to understand when someone is suicidal, their amygdala has been so distorted, and it is the area of fear response. It is the strongest response area in your brain, and it determines where memories are sent to your brain and where they are stored up. This fear response sets, of course, off the stress response, and so this area is an area that you as a parent can highly see effectiveness in how you communicate with your child. Because let's look at this area as we start ending here. And I'm going to be able to give you an indicator and just a couple more things. And again, there's about 200 pages of information, 150 to 200 pages of information of everything that I'm giving you. But I am only giving you a tad bit, enough for you to give your child hope. Amen. One of the areas about the amygdala is not only is it a fear response, fear conditioning area, but it is also the area of reward reinforcement. So if there is going to be a change in the mind, if there's going to be a behavioral change, it is also going to operate in the amygdala. So think about this. As you look at the amygdala, it is basically the extremes of the continuum. On this end, you might have fear, and on this end, you have love. Either one of those extremes, because the amygdala is the place of strong emotions. So you're either going to have fear or you're going to have love. So what is driving that amygdala with people who are in a suicidal state is fear. And there is fear conditioning in that amygdala. However, you as a parent, as a loved one, have opportunity daily. If I have not said that enough, let me say it one more time. You have opportunity daily, all throughout the day, as a parent, to have an effect on your child's amygdala, to not be under fear conditioning, but to be under reward reinforcement, which is what? Love. So what is one of the things that you can do as a parent that can help your child right now? I learned in studying the amygdala that facial, emotional faces, I don't know if you can see that, emotional faces, do y'all see those emojis? Emotional faces highly activate the amygdala. So think about this. When you're communicating with your child, you have to not be only mindful of your words, you have to be even more mindful of your facial expressions. Because whatever is right here is going to speak at a louder volume than what is coming out of your mouth. You can be saying one thing with your mouth, and you can be saying an entirely different message with your countenance. So when we're talking about communicating with your child, one of the things you can do all throughout the day is you can have awesome, wonderful, happy, emotional faces all day long. And without realizing it, your facial responses are actually having an effect on their amygdala, where it is gradually dialing the dial a little down from fear conditioning and over into reward reinforcement, because it is going to be giving their soul a reward, that they're good, that they're of value, that they're loved. And so one of the things that I do, just as a joke, but it's really not a joke, it's actually worked, and I've seen God doing awesome things with this, is I will just go to Matthew sometimes, and I will just do this, and just do a crazy happy face. And I do it all throughout the day. He responds back to me, but just implementing emotional faces, just implementing something that little, something that small, which is really not a small thing, just implementing these emotional faces is doing something for your child. As well as, one of the last things I want to say as we end today's broadcast is the other thing that your child is dealing with is rejection. The acronym that God gave me that I actually reveal in chapter 5 of this book with the stress response, as I get into fear, panic, and I get into the amygdala and the anatomy of the amygdala and the ways in which we overcome the attacks of the enemy, and the way that we also have behavioral change modification, is I have a chapter which I will hopefully do. Okay, let me see if I can do this right. Y'all say it with me this time. I will not turn it off. Help me, Jesus. This chapter is Seeing Through Rejection's Eyes that is superimposed on your soul. Stress, the acronym that God gave me, is Seeing Through Rejection's Eyes that is superimposed on your soul. And God also has, I'm just trying to show you a few things in here about the brain. He gets into the limbic system. He gets into all the areas of the brain. And again, please help me, God, not to get this Facebook Live off, because I did accidentally last time. God's Firewall School of Prophet Session 4, the Spirit of Knowledge. Now I'm going to turn you around back as we end here, and I give you the last tidbit of information, because the main thing that you're getting is you're buying time. You're buying time. You're buying time that you have one more day that your child is alive. And you cannot give up. You cannot grow weary. You cannot grow faint-hearted. You cannot have a nervous breakdown. You have to press through, and you have to be the rope of hope for your child to buy them one more day, because one more day means that you can pour out love, that you can affect that a part of their brain, the amygdala, that you can affect that brain dysregulation, where with that brain dysregulation, you will see the different brain dysregulations that are in the book, where that brain dysregulation has over-amplified everything in their life, where they are not able to comprehend, where they don't have the resources, where they feel like they cannot do anything. Your hope to them is like throwing a rope out to someone that is in a water and they're needing a lifeline, and it pulls them in and it buys you one more day. That is what you're looking at when you're dealing with this issue. You're looking at time, and you can't afford not to do this. You have got to interact with love. You have got to be careful of your words. You have to have time outs. You have to look at your own reactions. You have to pull back, and you have to watch your expressions to make sure that the message has a continuity, which is peace, hope, love. As we finish here, know these important tools. Time out. You can't be anxious because you'll distribute anxiety. Get a time out for yourself until you get peace. Number 2 is you can't get what the other person doesn't have. You can't ask for what they don't have in them. If they don't have it, then you be the one to help give them the encouragement, the hope, the belief that they can have the resources within themselves to do it. Number 3, you have to be mindful of emotional faces. You have to be mindful that your faces are not negative, that your faces are positive. You have to be mindful of that. Number 4 is you have to look at the environment and the stress level that is on that person. If the stress is too much, you have to look at an intervention or have an invention of a new way in which to do things. If they are in school, go to the resource leader, the social worker, the counselor of the school to get help in order to change their schedule, in order to help them in their studies, whatever is necessary. The main thing that you need as we end here is hope. Give out hope, magnify and acknowledge progress, and celebrate each day. So I hope that this has helped you in some way, and just get more information and get the book. Starting in chapter 3 to chapter 5, those last 3 chapters is the anatomy of the brain, and that is going to equip you as a parent to deal with this issue, and you're going to see your own issues as you get set free. Thank you so much. God bless you, and I hope this has helped you. Goodbye. I'll see you Monday.